Xiaomi. If you have a friend who is really into Android phones, you might have heard that name before. Xiaomi is a Chinese consumer electronics company that started making software, then phones, and now all sorts of products. A lot of people like to call them the Apple of China, and it is hard to deny that they take a lot of creative inspiration from Apple, from design to the way they do product reveals. And while some people will quickly brush them aside as simple copycat, the reality is that this brand is a huge deal in Asia, and is very quickly becoming a well-known name on this side of the world as well, with a growing number of options for importing Xiaomi devices to the West. Some people consider that an opportunity of having an Apple-quality device on a different OS for a lower price. So, when Xiaomi announced they were planning to start doing laptops last year, a lot of people got excited. This is the 13-inch version of that, the Xiaomi Notebook Air 13. This is being sold as an import from China by places like GearBest. Link to this laptop is in the description. Since this is a Chinese model, it came with one of those Windows versions that are only in Chinese and required a full Windows reinstall, or at least that's what I think, because I could never figure out how to change the language. And while there are a ton of interesting reviews out there about the quality versus price of this device, it is what is inside this thing that caught my attention. Looking at this device and its name, it is obvious that it is meant to be another contender for the market of put as much power as you can on a thin, portable laptop while keeping decent battery life. On its hearth, it has an Intel Core i5 7200U, an ultra-low voltage dual-core CPU meant to use as little power as possible, a monumental 8GB of RAM, and for the GPU, well, this is an Optimus laptop. If you're not familiar with the term Optimus, it is a technology that allows a laptop to switch between two GPUs, an integrated low-power GPU and a better dedicated one with the ability to select which program will use which GPU. That way you can theoretically maximize battery life and still have a decent GPU when you need it. The low-power GPU in this device is an Intel HD Graphics 620, a newer Intel HD included on the i5. If you're limited to gaming on this device, you can actually get a lot out of it. Out of curiosity, I decided to launch the GTA 5 benchmark on all the lowest settings and shadows removed using the configuration file, and I was surprised to see it gave playable results. It still has trouble in certain areas, but it provides a result way over what I expected. You might see more of this Intel HD in the future, as I might use it for some intense games. The other GPU in this laptop is a dedicated NVIDIA MX150. Wait, what? If you're as confused as I was, the MX150 is a new development that started showing up in new laptops after August. And from what I could gather, it is not meant for modern AAA games, but rather to provide decent performance on ultra-thin notebooks, only promising decent performance on highly optimized esports titles. A quick look into benchmark apparently locates it in power way under the GTX 750 that I use on the budget VR video, and, interestingly enough, under the GTX 460. For reference, I have used the 7-year-old GTX 460 in this channel and a number of videos. This is usually my last resort when dealing with a game that is so unoptimized that no other devices will play it, even after reducing the graphics to the minimum. So given that, as people get new laptops for school or work, a lot of people will be curious about the gaming possibilities of this particular GPU. I asked myself, could super low graphics and performance tweaks allow this super thin laptop to play some really heavy AAA releases? For this purpose, I picked 3 of the games that had given me the most trouble recently and got to work. First, Nier Automata. This game's performance issues are well known and still discussed. And on 720, with all the settings to the lowest, the game was giving me around 27 FPS on open areas, and on 1080, closer to 18. This game does not behave well under 30. Thankfully, the far mode that I use on the video is still perfectly usable. Disabling global illumination makes it clean between 45 and 50 for 720, which is pretty fluid, and even as high as 1080 it manages to maintain something closer to 30. Good, that was quite the change. Another title I wanted to try is Dishonored 2, which some people have called one of the worst PC ports of last year, or just ever, with widespread performance issues even on high-end systems. I recently did a video explaining how to disable a series of boost effects and fog in the game for a small boost in performance. That, combined with the lowest settings on a resolution of 720, managed to nail between 35 and 40 FPS on open areas, although it is worth mentioning that it does much better than smaller areas even while in combat. But the performance is all over the place. As long as you use a cap or some patience, it can be considered quite playable. Another thing I wanted to try is Unknown Player Battlegrounds, which seems to be the hottest thing in the universe at the moment. A lot of people still complain quite vocally about this game's performance on all systems across the board, which is why I made a video about some interesting tweaks for it. Before heading that way though, I need to acknowledge some things. Bluehole on their website has stated that changing the configuration file is not permitted. You can imagine the opinions I have about this. I understand this is in order to avoid cheating, but barring people from changing configuration files altogether seems a bit extreme, especially when people have been looking for performance tweaks on files since the start of PC gaming. And it could be argued that some of these actually put people using that at a disadvantage. In any case, I will add a disclaimer here that I will have on all future mentions of this game and in the description of the old video. If you decide to use any of these tweaks, you do so at your own risk, so be aware of that. So, in the name of science, I disabled a bunch of effects anyway and launched the game on 720 and the lowest settings. Interestingly enough, the game has received some optimization since I last talked about it, and that, together with a bunch of things I disabled, makes for better performance than I expected. I still noticed slowdowns in open areas, but it did not drop under what I will consider playable, and having some really high numbers on some very specific areas, especially with the lighting disabled. So yeah, apart from the fact that I can never accurately rely on these types of benchmarks for lowest settings, it is obvious that, if tweaks are available, you can get some really good performance on some intense games on ultra-portable laptops. So, what do you think? Did you experience an aneurysm by seeing such an obviously overpowered GPU on this channel? And don't worry, I'm going back to Intel Atom Gaming for the next video. Did you think gaming laptops will always be a lost cause, or is this actually worth it? Let me know. I will see you all in the next video.